Jay Bearhat, how are you doing?
I'm feeling a little malignant.
Oh shit!
Ah, title drop already, right there.
Bam! Right there.
Boom,
Right on the tin.
bam. I love when a movie gives away the twist in the title.
Yeah, Malignant. So what I'm hearing is that you watched the film Malignant by James Wan.
Yes, I have bared witness. It took me many many weeks of trying to make sure I had a night free to go and see it with my friends of the therapist office, Lonnie and James.
Friends of the
Um,
office, friends of the office.
and the thing that I'm very glad I got to see it in theaters because I did not expect it to be a new metal horror film in 2021.
Yeah, it had a lot of screeching guitar soundtrack. Well, the soundtrack, it had that "Where Is My Mind" cover.
Yeah, that was I've never felt gaslit by a soundtrack before. But every time it started, I was like, oh, I would go like, where is my mind? And then I'd be like, wait, hold on. I'd be like, is this just the opening guitar riff to Where Is My Mind? And then it just like takes a left turn
Yeah,
and becomes something else.
it becomes the True Detective theme song or whatever.
I did find it is in fact actually licensed as Where Is My Mind. Like it is in the credits that is in fact Where Is My Mind by the Pixies.
Yes.
Just chopped up a little bit to screw with the audience.
Make the guys in the theater seats feel a little chopped and screwed. Hey,
Yeah, now you feel, and now you know what it's like to be a woman in Biden's America. Am I right?
uh, if anybody knows about chopping and screwing, it's James Wan.
Oh man.
Yeah, this movie had quite a bit to say about masculinity, it seems like. I don't know. What are your feelings on the movie in a general sense?
Um, so I liked it, but I
Mm.
liked it because I like James Wan's horror films, and that it means even when James Wan makes really bad horror films, I tend to still like them. This one is like a rare one in that it's like I like it, but I wouldn't call it bad. But also, I would never recommend it to anybody who doesn't like the Saw movies or has not seen Dead Silence at least 3 times. It's
AKA you would never recommend it to me, is what you're
I would
saying.
never. I did recommend it to you because I really wanted to hear your thoughts on it, but I would not recommend it to anyone else.
uh
um Well, I would recommend it to people as like it's fun. It's like if you're looking for a fun horror film that starts off as we're gonna get into spoiler territory.
oh yeah.
Uh, that starts off as like feels like it might be a slow burner, kind of campy take on the Gallo. Well, as campy as Gallo films tend to be. Like woman in a possibly haunted house situation. Ooh, there's a mystery. There's murders going on. What's going on?
Right.
Um, and then by the third act of the film, she's running backwards while being piloted by the tumor of her dead twin brother that lives inside her skull and is just killing like literally the entire Seattle Police Department in one scene.
Yeah, see that's pretty it's hard for me to oppose that in any capacity. That's like good. But
Um,
doesn't she also kill inmates as well? Just kind
She
of.
does. So there is a scene that I have very complicated feelings about
Yeah.
because on one hand, in a movie that takes place in a very modern horror setting, to just suddenly put your character in a jail cell filled of literally every outdated women in prison stereotype is like such an the thing I like about James Wan's directing is that he makes like insane people decisions. um Like there's the classic one from Dead Silence is that the detective in the film who's like thinks that the main character is the guy who killed his wife and doesn't believe that it's a puppet, is just shaving in like every scene. Like he shows up to the guy's a hotel and he has an electric razor and he's just like casually shaving himself and making jokes about like like how do I get a close shave like this puppet guy here. Like it's such an insane character trait. Is just this detective is in every scene he is in, he is shaving.
I'm obsessed with that. I think that's great.
When the main character's sister shows up, she's just wearing a princess dress.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, this is my job. And it just doesn't come up ever again. It's just for the one scene where we meet her, she's dressed as a princess.
She's busy. She's a busy girl. This establishes her place in the capitalist system or whatever.
And so that jail cell scene is absolutely a part of that, where it's like, why is this jail cell filled with like characters that look like they're from like a 1970s like women in prison peril film? Just no reason for them to be in there at all. And then they all do get brutally murdered. And that's sort of like the big twist that's revealing the fact that not Philip, Gabriel is actually a tumor inside her head. Which another thing I like about this film is that like you can guess kind of what the twist is, but like the whole time I was watching it, I was trying to figure out how the twist was going to be done.
Sure.
Like I thought it was gonna be like, oh, they have like a week, because like it's heavily implied throughout the film that it's something supernatural.
Yeah.
And then so for the twist to be, no, he's literally just like physically in her head, and whenever he takes her body over, he like cracks her head open like an egg, and then just runs backwards. Because that's how he controls her. Because that's the perspective in which he sees the world. Is like so funny. Because I knew it had to be something like that. Well, no, like I thought it was going to be like, oh, she had like a conjoined at the head twin or something that was malignant because it was like a tumor. And that
right.
The problem was that they were like, well, they only have one brain, so like we can only save one of them, so we're gonna kill the other one. And that's the one who it is, and so the embodiment of him looks the way it does because like he was the backwards twin. But for it to just be like, no, it's literally just the main character but backwards. When he first shows up, I leaned over to one of my friends and that I was seeing it with, and I just went like, oh, bro, Malignant got like femboy hips. Little did I know.
Yeah, I mean the backwards movement stuff was like fun, and like very silly. The fact that like one of the main props is this like disassembled trophy knife thing. I don't know, just like a lot of goofy little details that went into this for sure.
And that's like, so I've been telling people this. A thing that I feel about this film is that a lot of people are kind of calling it James Wan's take on giallo films, and like there's definitely elements of that.
Yeah.
The trophy one is like, that's a very, like that kind of genre piece thing. But I think the reason why people are doing that is because there's been enough critical distance that is the acceptable kind of lowbrow pulpy horror. Like people kind of treat that as if it's more artsy and like, like that's more worthwhile horror and stuff, unlike this new horror, which is like bad. And so I feel like a lot of people are missing the fact that it's like, no, this is like exactly the kind of movies James Wan was making in like 2004.
Yeah.
Like this film is in direct kinship with the House of Wax movie with Paris Hilton, with the fucking Black Christmas remake from 2006, like just the most, like with the fucking Freddy versus Jason movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's different in that it borrows sort of a different kind of ethos to those, but like it goes in the same sort of like big guts, big blood, over the top spectacle kind of direction with like a butt metal soundtrack and like a lot of color correction.
Yeah.
And also like an emphasis on like cool monster design or like weird monster design. That was like a big thing in that genre era.
Oh yeah, yeah. Having a gross little guy is like really, really important.
He's such a gross little guy, and you know it gets into like, you know, perfect for like horror yaoi and like horror fujoshis and like all the little like Zoomer trans weirdos who love horror. Perfect character to project on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, there's a dense sort of like, you know, there's these dense sort of themes present for sure. But then I don't know. He also just looks like kind of like an emo boy. I don't know. Like everybody who's obsessed with like Slender Man, sexually obsessed with like Slender Man or whoever else, will I think have a good time with this movie.
Oh, absolutely. He is not. Sadly, he's not the first trans mask villain, but he is a big one.
Well, you know, more representation, right?
Yeah. Hey, more. I always say more is better. Another thing, a detail in this film that I really like is like the way James Wan uses like those kinds of tropes that I mentioned earlier. Like he just like kind of like borrows and remixes, and so him having a scene where the main character comes home and her soon to be dead husband is watching a fight, MMA fight on the TV, and it's like, that's how you know he's an abuser. But he's like watching it in the bedroom because it's like, well, this next scenes that have to happen in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So instead of watching it, like, so like she turns it off and he's like, hey, I'm watching that. But it's like they have a TV downstairs in the living room that's
Literally
bigger. So it's like, why are you watching this like in bed looking like you're like waiting for your wife to come home to have sex? Like, what is this setup here other than just like you need to get the trope in of like he watches fights and that's how you know he's dangerous because he wants to fight you.
He's violent. Yeah, men do this.
Men be watching fight games to get them pumped up to yell at their wife that she gets pregnant too much.
I'm sick of you getting pregnant, you pregnant bitch.
Such a great line of like, maybe the problem is you need to stop being pregnant. Like it's an addiction so she can't stupid. Put down.
I really do not want to spend too much time on my feelings on this movie because it is kind of like, it's the Cloverfield paradox situation where like you just have to like see it in the right light. And I was not at a, you know, like Friday matinee. I was not at a midnight screening. I was watching it in my room at like 3 p.m. on a Sunday and feeling like I was, you know, 15 again, watching sci-fi original movies and thinking about how I would love to actually be scared by a movie and not have it be kind of wrapped up in its own pretense about being goofy and stupid and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I kind of bounced off Malignant, but I also can see like I can see a version of my experience with the movie that is fun, or like I can envision a situation where like people in the theater are screaming or laughing, or you know, like finding the movie as goofy as it's trying to be, as opposed to me sitting alone in my room thinking about how easily I feel like I could scare people with a budget of $40 million. You know what I mean?
Oh, you could. Yeah, it's incredibly easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that like that's kind of like there's two things about that. That's one. Well, I'll do the discourse 1 second. So first off, an audience definitely helps because having an audience that laughed at like all the same parts we laughed at and then was like, yeah, at all the parts that we were like, yeah, at.
Yeah.
Really, it really heightens the mood. You know, it's the same thing that makes like mediocre comedies or whatever better, but I feel like it plays to it really well, and I feel like part of the reason why it plays to it really well is that it plays it very close to its chest. For some reason, there's this one shot where the sister is going to the old sanitarium where the tumor was taken out and whatnot to find out what happened. And she sees it in the distance and she's like, whoa, it's huge. And then suddenly it's nighttime and there's like a shot of it and it's like on a cliffside and there's just like a corner of like the parking lot there. And there's no like you know, like the little bump thing that they have so
Right.
like you don't like drive. And she just pulls up perilously close to the edge of the cliff and gets out. And it's just it's like the shot is held just long enough. And it's like there's this like beautiful night sky and everything that's like, you know, framing it on the left hand side. There's this looming castle on the right hand side. And then just her pulling up. And it's just like everyone in our theater just fucking lost it laughing because it's such like you immediately are like, stop.
Slow down. Stop the car. That's
which immediately makes you think like, why is she parking like here and not like in the parking lot?
Bitches in horror movies will go right into that pitch black basement. They will drive right up to the very edge of that cliff. They will, yeah. No, that stuff's great. That stuff's always fun.
It's it's like everyone I've talked to, like almost everyone I've talked to said that, like, yeah, like that scene like made me fucking like lose it laughing. And it's like it feels like that has to be an intentional thing. Like it's such a constructed shot. It's so much like detail and thought put into it, and it goes on just long enough that I feel like it has to be like maybe he saw a similar shot in some like obscure 70s film and was like, this is great, I need to put this in my movie.
Well, there's also that great shot with, and you'll have to remind me of some of the context, I guess, but I isn't it like her birth mother that she kidnaps and is like in the attic?
Yeah. The reveal that the woman who's kidnapped by Malignant at the start of the film is the birth mother of the two of them. And then she finally escapes.
Yeah, she like falls through the floor and like thuds on the ground, and
immediately after the scene where they were doing the psychic thing to like recover some memories, and not only is it shown to be actually literally immediately after that, but the police and psychic, or like the police and like hypnotherapist are like in the front doorway.
Yeah, about to
leave.
Oh my god.
It shows such a thorough understanding of like how to lean into that camp for like the purposes of making your movie like fun, which leads to the second point I was going to make, which is sort of similar to the Gallo thing. Is a lot of the really annoying people who hate the film or whatnot will be like, oh, like, or like the way they talk about it is it's like, oh, I didn't understand, I was supposed to find this film like funny, which is like, do you need to be like told like what feelings to have about a movie before you watch it,
right?
But B, it's like, it's also like such a misunderstanding of like the use of camp in horror films. Well, and like why people like campiness in horror films, which is like it's this idea of like, oh, it's supposed to be bad, when it's like, no, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, people will talk shit about Malignant and then like go back and watch like the funniest fucking movies in the world from this. Like there's like a scene in Inferno, that's what it's called. I remember watching Inferno and seeing this scene of like a guy being eaten by rats. These like fake ass, or like, I don't know, the shots like cycling between all of these like shots of real rats and like fake rats. And it's just like, this is goofy. So much of horror is like so, you know, infused with a sense of goofiness, which is not to say that it has to sacrifice being scary for the sake of that. But like, yeah, as much as Malignant didn't really, like, I kind of bounced off of it, I also like, I don't really have any delusions about what the intent of the film is, you know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be fucking fun.
Yeah, no, it's exactly like camp can add to like the horror and stuff, and like isn't necessarily like the whole thing about Gallo films is that they can be very cathartic, because they deal with really exploitative themes in a very basically disrespectful way, but it's usually they're really campy.
Yeah.
I watched Daughters of Darkness recently, which is like a bisexual lesbian vampire like thriller, like in that kind of genre thing from the 70s. And like the main the Elizabeth Bathory character in the film is like literally like vamping it up the entire time. Like she is like modeled after, like intentionally modeled after like Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah. Ugh.
And it's just like, oh, this fucking straight couple fucking booked the newlywed suite that I wanted. I'm gonna fucking kill both of them. I'm going to fuck the girl and I'm going to kill the guy using vampire powers while my extremely bitter, jealous GF watches. And like that is the whole plot of the film. It is so fucking campy, but it's like really, really good because of that. Like I don't think it would be as effective if it was played like super straightforwardly.
Yeah.
It would probably just be like kind of boring if it was. I mean, you can make very straightforward like vampire films interesting. I haven't seen Thirst in ages, but you know,
I remember not liking Thirst.
I was gonna say it's like I thought it was like mid, but I'm like maybe I'd like it more now. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I did watch The Bloodette. Speaking of vampire films, and that was the exact same thing. It was like. It was like it starts out as this like vampire film about these like, you know, kind of like metaphorically more or less like sex workers.
Yeah.
But then it kind of becomes this like Weekend at Bernie's thing. But then there's like all of these like Matrix style fight scenes and stuff. Like so fun. My qualms with Malignant are like when you meet a person and you're just like, oh, I don't like that bitch. And people are like, why don't you like that bitch? And you're just like, I don't know.
Malignant is one of those films that I knew I was gonna be excited to go see because I found both a lot of the people who favorably talked about it and a lot of the people who negatively talked about it fucking insufferable. Which meant that I knew that it would be a film that is very not easy to have like. It's kind of a film where it's like you kind of your tastes and what you put into the film are what you're going to get out of it.
Absolutely.
Which is why it's like, you know, there's negative reviews of the film that I like as well, because it's like, yeah, like I can absolutely see this being a film that a lot of people will bounce off of, but it's like so it's been so long since a movie like this has been released that it's like, oh, this is such a breath of like fresh air for me of just like a film that is unapologetically like maximizing its intense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's I mean like I also feel that kind of like nostalgia for the sort of you know, the new metal, the butt rock horror stuff, you know? Like I think it's really just a matter of how this movie kind of interacts with the environment that it's being watched in. Just because you have to be, I don't know, you have to have like a butt rock environment, I guess I would say.
It definitely is like it is the film that will save theaters.
Absolutely.
This movie will save the movie theater business.
These are kind of characters that are written within like the framework of like police story TV type stuff. So the humanity that they're given kind of within that structure is like, I don't know, it kind of shines through in a nice way.
Yeah, no, it's the understanding of like making it clear that these are all stock characters, and then like, you know, but using that less in a way of like laziness and filler and more as like the shortcuts to the story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Which is about like, damn, wouldn't it be crazy if you had a backwards twin in your head? And he was evil and fucked up.
Right, yeah. I think it would be pretty fucking crazy. I don't know how I would deal with that.
I would just simply not let it happen. I will say, because you didn't finish it, I do like that is essentially what happens at the end of the film, is that
Mm-hmm.
once she becomes aware of it, and the way it's broken through is that like as it's getting ready to kill her sister and their mom, um, her sister just suddenly shouts out, he ate your fetuses. He was feeding on them to get more power.
He ate your fetuses. He was feeding on them. It's
Yeah,
just
he was feeding on them.
9 words she doesn't want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sort of bombast and like that kind of stuff. Uh, because I don't know, I'm very prickly and I'm very sensitive about women and horror and that kind of thing. But like, I don't know, it's very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is. It's such a funnily. It's so like just you rented a bunch of Argento and such and whatnot films and we're just like, all right, let's go. All right, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. Like, would it be better if this movie existed and like a woman, and some of the most extreme forms of pain that a human can experience are kind of like puppeteered to kind of goofy ends, or is it better to like not make movies like this and kind of infantilize women and treat them as monolithic? And like that's not a discussion I'm super interested in, but they're like thoughts that I'm having, and like at the end of the day, like I I think like having this movie is the much lesser evil, especially in terms of like how people can kind of react to it. And I also see that like a lot of people just get a lot of straightforward value out of this type of like that type of process, that type of artistic process, and that type of abstraction.
So one, the film itself was based on a story by James Wan and Ingrid Bisu, who is his wife.
Aw, cute.
And two, the script, Akilah Cooper, a woman wrote it.
Yay! So there we go. Women in horror. My
Yeah.
asked and answered.
This is a woman written film that where also on the original story, like I'm assuming it's just they're like these are kind of the beats we want to hit for it. Was also half written by James Wan's wife.
Yeah, and that's kind of in part why like I don't think it's misogynist.
Yeah.
I just think it's like very, very like sensitive. You know what I mean?
My thing I always put it is like one of the things I like about exploitation films
Mm-hmm.
is that they are exploitative and like highly insensitive, which like sounds counterintuitive, but
Yeah.
it's like there's a lot of good film and a lot of good art that deals with like super heavy, like fucked up, awful things and like in like very careful and considerate ways that gives like a whole breadth from it. And then sometimes it's just like I just want something that matches how fucking crazy you feel as a person when something
Yeah.
fucked up happens to you. And that's like what exploitation films do for me is that like the way that they treat it is like literally just how it feels.
Well, yeah, and absolute like trauma and problems and abuse and like that kind of shit. Like sometimes you really need it to be minimized.
Yeah.
And like the sheer act of like abstracting it to a form of art like helps with that process and helps kind of compartmentalize as well.
I recently have been going on a few dates. Yeah.
Oh, hey,
And
ooh.
we were talking about this, and I ended up lending them my copy of House of Psychotic Women because, like, that's basically like the major thesis statement of that book, and
Yeah.
was kind of the catalyst for me to be like, all right, I need to like start watching exploitation films again because like I was super into like B movies and like whatnot in horror films in high school and stuff in college as well. I've always had a soft spot for them, but I kind of moved away from them when I was like, oh, I can't be watching that kind of stuff. I'm a mature adult now, and now it's like no, I've always loved that shit, and
Right.
I probably always will love that shit. So it's a fun way to approach it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for discussing this with me. Uh and yeah. And as much as I bounced off the movie a little bit, I'm glad that you and several other friends enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
I think it's great, even if
So
even
even
if
if
I'm
you
a
fucking
pussy.
hated it, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it made you pissed off and
It made me like the angry movie nerd.
what were they?
This movie was a bunch of buffalo diarrhea dog shit right in my ass.
I feel like I was the one running backwards out of the movie theater.
Hey, this movie's like a malignant tumor on my enjoyment organ. Well, thank you for coming in today for our session.
Yeah.
Hopefully it worked out for you. I don't really have any advice or anything to take away from this meeting, but thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And I hope any other growths are benignant.
Yeah. I believe the opposite of malignant is female lignant. It's the malignant. Huh?
Yeah, that's
Did
great.
that work?
Thank
Did
you.
that work?
Thank you. Get out of my office. Get the fuck
Okay.
out of my
All right.
office.
All right. I'm going. Bye.